Good evening, Vikings fans. Happy Week 1 victory. The Vikes have started off the season on the right note at 1-0 with a 28-6 victory in East Rutherford, New Jersey over the New York Giants. This is Mike on the Vikes, here to tell you first and foremost, don't change the shirt you wore today. Don't change how you watched the game. Don't change your game day meal. Let's ride this good mojo into our next two matchups, which are very tough. We play against the Niners and the Texans in the next couple of weeks before we head to Lambeau for our first matchup against Green Bay. And so, while we should be reveling in this victory and the fact that it was a win by more than one possession, we were in control the whole game. Everything we've been hoping for the past couple of years, just keep it in check. It was the Giants, but tonight is mostly about celebration. And by the way, you haven't seen me in a while. At JLime8 if you want to reach out on X. It's been a while because I've been doing some stuff over at Bite Size Sports. I've been doing some podcasting with my buddy Simon at the Simon and Friends podcast. Go check that out if you're interested. And then my guy Trevor and I have a Wednesday night fantasy podcast / YouTube show from Bite Size Sports, and that's every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. So I've been busy, but unfortunately not a whole lot with Mike on the Vikes. But now that the season is underway, you can expect some reactions from me, and we're in a good mood tonight, as we all should be in Skull Nation. I know it was the Giants, so I'll start with that. I'm not going to say we're Super Bowl bound because of this performance today. However, I mentioned just a little bit ago, how many years have Vikings fans been waiting for our good teams to just finish the job, just build a lead, maintain the lead, not make any mistakes, not allow other teams to get back in it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, a couple years ago we had the great season where we had 11 one-possession victories. What a fun season, what a magical season, and yet it was very stressful. Today, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't stressed. My emotions were not up and down on a roller coaster because I never felt like the game was in jeopardy or the result was in jeopardy, and so it was a really good feeling. So I know the Giants are not exactly the class of the NFC, but we had a job to do. We did our job, got off to a good start, and there's definitely hope for us competing this season. I know our division is tough, and I know that we have a tough schedule, especially over the next couple weeks, but I think the way our defense played today and the way Kevin O'Connell coached and the fact that Sam Darnold got this confidence booster under his belt, I feel like while we may not win 12 games this year, we're not gonna go down without a fight in any of them, and that's gonna be fun for us to see. So my week one reactions will be pretty straightforward. 3 things I like, 3 things I didn't like, and I'll say right off the bat, the things I didn't like, I had to dig pretty deep in the barrel. Last year, I would have reacted with all the things I didn't like all the time, and it would have been very passionate. Why? Because we had the same issues in a lot of our losses. It was all turnover based. We didn't run the ball, things like that. But there's always things to improve on, so I'm not going to pretend like we were perfect. However, there are plenty of things I do like, and so you can see them down there. The first thing, what a great way for journeyman, disgruntled, however you want to describe him, Sam Darnold starts 12 for 12. Unbelievable. He finished, I believe, 19 for 24, just over 200 yards. So again, nothing record-breaking or anything like that. But he started 12 for 12. My favorite part of that, though, he had 8 different completions to 8 different receivers. And the spread was just how you'd expect. Jefferson had the most targets, followed by Addison. By the way, Addison hurting his ankle. Hopefully, that is just a minor week-to-week thing. But you never know, and so we'll have to see over this next week how long he's going to be out. But my point stands. He was diversified his passing. He got the ball to a bunch of different players. The touchdown to Jalen Naylor was my favorite play on the whole day because it was a Kevin O'Connell masterclass. You motioned Jefferson out of the backfield. You're the Giants. You're in the red zone, or not quite in the red zone, but they're in your territory. You see Jefferson motion out to the right, where he's gonna have a big cushion. I thought we were going to throw the ball to JJ. I think everyone at the Meadowlands thought we were going to throw it to JJ, and then Darnold did just enough to look the back, or be patient enough so that the D-back actually was convinced that we were throwing to JJ, and then he just hits Jalen Naylor in stride, wide open for a touchdown. My favorite play of the day, and just a small sample of what this offense can be with a competent quarterback. We saw it a lot with Kirk before he got hurt last year, and Sam Darnold's done this before, right? He's had a few good games with teams. When he first went to Carolina, he started off pretty strong, so I'm not ready to crown him. I'm not ready to beat the MVP drum for him or anything, but I just think to get off on the right foot was great, and I'm glad we didn't have to eke out a close victory against the Giants. I'm glad we didn't have to rely on a bunch of luck. We were the better team. We played like the better team, and we played well in pretty much all the facets of the game for the most part. So it starts with Darnold. Starting 12 for 12 is very impressive. They weren't all dinks and dunks either, so I felt really good about that. The other thing I loved, if you've followed any of my work over the past couple of years, I've been desperately calling for the Vikings to run the football more consistently. We had 26 total rushes today for 111 yards. I love that stat because it doesn't suggest that we had an abnormally good rushing day, but it does suggest that we committed. We had 26 rushes. I think that's a very healthy amount, and we ran for over 100 yards, which is I think a pretty good pretty good benchmark for how your team should be. If you look at the teams that go deep in the playoffs in the AFC and the NFC for the past couple of years, outside of a couple anomalies, teams that run the ball and stay on the field, it sounds so simple, but we're a league where we value the quarterback, we value the passing attack, we value all those things, but the teams that can win in the trenches and run the football have a much higher success rate, and so I loved to see that. And then you can see there I wrote did the real quick difficult math. Aaron Jones had 14 carries for 94 yards. That comes out to just over 6.7 yards per carry. Awesome. He's not going to be there all year. I get that. But he was gashing the Giants left and right. He looked real spry. He looked real quick, real fast, and I love that. In fact, one of the honorable mentions for things I didn't like from this game is I know he only had 14 carries, so it's not like he was, we were pushing 35 with him, but we want him to make it through the season. Yeah, I think we could all agree on that. So even more splashes of Ty Chandler going forward would be wise, in my opinion. That being said, Aaron Jones looked great. Didn't look like he got dinged up at all. And 14 carries isn't exactly putting the whole burden on his shoulders. So that so I'm not really complaining about that. That's why I didn't put it as a thing I didn't like. I'm going to be worried about him getting hurt all year. Is basically my thought process on that. And so as a Ty Chandler fan myself, whenever we can get him to spell Aaron Jones, I think we'll feel good. But before I get to that third thing I just want to touch on the offense in general. I mean, it was the Giants defense had no answer for what O'Connell wanted to do. I already mentioned the play calling on the touchdown to Naylor. When you have a guy like Aaron Jones, I think he showed that the skill at the running back position, or there is variance in the skill at the running back position. I know a lot of people think that running backs that make it to the NFL are all athletic, they're all fast, they can all cut, right? So you can maybe just piecemeal it together, but there's a reason why guys like Aaron Jones have lasted this long and have been at this high of a level, and so that was a big part of it. I loved Darnold's accuracy. The plays where the broadcast was calling it out, where O'Connell was running up to the line doing a little bit of hurry up so that we got some plays off without Dexter Lawrence on the field, was huge. Dexter Lawrence he breaks up every play, and in fact the whole Giants front seven is actually really good. And so while the Giants themselves aren't exactly an elite contender that we knocked off today, their front seven's no joke. And so the coaching that went on for O'Connell to get those plays off at the right times so that we could keep pushing the ball forward and could get into manageable second and ththird down situations was huge. A lot's going to be made as well of our 99-yard drive. I've already heard on the radio a couple times today that we haven't had one since, was it 2010, something like that, right around that time when Gus Frerotte was our quarterback, and he hit Bernard Berrien on a 99-yard touchdown pass. We haven't had a drive that long since then, and we didn't have to get it all in one play today, but it was a masterclass. We made it all the way up and down the field, and that's been my whole thing with running the ball over the past couple of years is we need to be on the field with our offense. Our offense has been amazing for the past couple of years, but it's also been pretty quick hitter, right? It's either on or it's shut down, right? There's no in between. There's no long drawn out sustained drives. And so I feel like our offense was just explosive enough, but also was managing the game enough as well. And it was just a really cool balance. This is what we talk about when we win a game 28-6 and we feel great about it, right? We scored a touchdown in the first quarter. That was something we struggled to do last year. Even putting up 7 points in the first quarter felt good because it sets the tone. You feel better. You feel like, okay, we can score on this team. We don't have to wait to see when we're going to turn it on and make a huge epic comeback. So a lot of things about this game. Again, I know it's the Giants, and I'm not saying this means we're going to the Super Bowl, even though we're probably going to the Super Bowl. But no, I'm not. I'm not trying to make that stretch there. But there, the things I've been calling for the Vikings to improve on, that stuff was there, or evidence of that was there in today's Week 1 victory, um, and so I feel really good about that, and all of us fans should. And then the last thing, I have to mention the defense. I should have probably given them more than one thing I liked on here, but the defense was as advertised, right? Keeping Brian Flores was a lucky, in my opinion, pretty lucky, because guys like him who have the pedigree that he does as a defensive coordinator typically get more opportunities as a head coach. And so for whatever reason, again, I don't know all the ins and outs of that, and there was something just a few weeks ago about how he treated his players in Miami as DC. I don't know anything enough about that. I'm not going to speculate, but what I do know is he puts forth a really high-quality defense, and I've been scared all offseason. What's our secondary going to look like? Are we going to be able to stop the pass? And today it looked like we did pretty well. We had definitely good pass rush. Dallas Turner gets off the board, so there's no stupid media like, oh, when is he going to get his first sack? When is he going to feel acclimated league? He got a sack today. In fact, we got 5 total sacks. I wrote that down. 2 interceptions, one of them a pick 6 by newcomer Andrew Van Ginkel on a great play, which is a really heads-up play. I feel like you see that play all the time. It was a quick hit pass, linebacker flying in, catching it one-handed on his hip and bringing it in to run a pick 6. Like, how many times you see a play similar to that end with the guy dropping it and going, no, I should have had it, right? Because they're not used to catching passes. So good play on him. And actually, the Fox broadcast they had a graphic. I don't know if you watched the game, but they had a graphic that showed pretty much all of the new faces that we brought in on defense. And they were like, I think it was Jonathan Vilma. I'll have to, if I'm wrong on that, I apologize right now. But he said something to the effect of, these are the guys we brought in, and we've already mentioned all of their names in a positive way. So, like, wasn't one of those things where, you bring in a guy and you're like, where is he? Didn't they bring in this guy? How come he hasn't made a play yet? All of the guys that we brought in seemingly had made plays, had their name called for flying to the ball. Like, just everything clicked. Everything did what we wanted it to do, and I think such a good start for us. Again, even though it was against the Giants. Harry got a pick as well, which was a really nice play. I mentioned the Dallas Turner sack. We frustrated them all day. Malik Neighbors is going to be great, and I was one that I'm still holding out a little hope that Daniel Jones can do it, but we made them look extremely pedestrian. And there was just no threat. There was no real worry that they were going to come back in this game. Even when it was 14-3 at halftime, that's not, you're not ready to chalk up the W quite yet when you're only up 14-3, but it definitely never felt like we were going to relinquish our lead and lose the game. And so really great start. Feel super good about it, of course. And I could think of a million other things to say that I liked about it, but Jefferson looks like his normal self. I mean, you'd like to see him get more than 4 or 5 catches on 6 targets, but again, we didn't need to do anything the fourth quarter. We actually had 5 less minutes of time of possession compared to the Giants. And that's because they were just struggling to try to move the ball, and we were up by so big it didn't matter, right? So, like, everything was in the right direction for the most part, and I hope that this is the confidence boost we need, as we go ahead to take on, I think we have San Francisco before we have Houston. Yes, we host San Francisco next Sunday, so that's a huge game, and obviously we're going to be underdogs there, rightfully so. But hopefully this is the confidence boost we need, that when we execute, when we do what we can, our coaches are going to put us in the right place. And we have the talent to really, really take over a game. So all good to report on that end. I did find a few things I didn't like, and this is because we overanalyze everything, because we have 16 more games to go, right? You don't get to the playoffs by beating the Giants in week 1. But I also will say this is a nitpicky 3 things, right? This is just 3 and 3. It's symmetrical. It makes sense on a podcast. I'm not dwelling on these too much, but there were plenty of things to see that you say, okay, we got to still get better at that. One of them is the C.J. Ham fumble. I love C.J. Ham, but That's another early game fumble, and at the time it happened, we didn't have the game in hand yet. It was in our own territory. It was a terrible fumble, and you immediately think of last year, right? Hawkinson, game one, bad fumble, we lose to the Bucks. Like, dude, things like that, turnovers like that can really set the tone. And last year, turnovers were the tone. We were terrible in the turnover department, among other places, and so you just can't have that. And so, um, first maybe it's first week jitters, whatever. But C.J. Ham's a seasoned vet. He's a proven perennial top quality fullback. Like, you can't have that. And so, just calling it out because we can't just be sunshine and roses over here at Mike and the Vikes. We have to be realistic, even though we're going to the Super Bowl, and that's also not realistic. But whatever you gotta, however you gotta rationalize it. Interior pressure was a little bit of a struggle at times as well. The same questions still remain regarding Ed Ingram and pass protection. Now, granted, we were their one sack was a Dexter Lawrence blows everything up play, and he is going to blow up most offensive lines at least a handful of times. So I'm not saying that all is lost or that we can't field those same five guys again. But if there was one issue we had consistently at the offensive line when Kirk was here the past few years, it's been interior pressure. And so, in fact, I was a little worried earlier. A couple of those early pressures, Darnold looked like he was either holding it too long or he was too worried, nervous to kind of maneuver the pocket. And it looked like it was just a little bit of week one jitters. He kind of got better with his footwork and movement as the game went on. But that's going to be something we always have to worry about, right? Because Sam Darnold definitely has more mobility than Kirk Cousins, but also definitely not a quarterback that we're going to be rolling out a ton to get a whole bunch of design runs and scrambles out of. And so, if he's going to have a big Dexter Lawrence in his face every pass, we are going to have issues. So we do have to check on that, and I'm sure that's one of the first things to look at the team when they get into the film room this week. And then the third one up there, 7 penalties for 63 yards. I didn't even know it was that bad because the Giants had 9 penalties for like 95 yards. So they also had a terrible game. And again, could just be week one stuff, but and then there was I forget which play it was. It was a hold on. We got called for a holding call, and it was real minimal. I think it was the Garrett Bradbury one early on in the game. Like, it was a pretty soft call, but that's neither here nor there. 7 penalties, 60 yards. It's too much, more than you want, right? You have to be able to play disciplined football and execute. So when you factor in turnovers and penalties, right? We did have a couple turnovers. We had those penalties. Like, that's what. This is just like let's keep our egos in check, right? We can't run away from this victory and say we're set to go, we're perfect, we had it all figured out, and they won't think that either. So I'm just trying to be balanced, both sides of the coin here, because there's way more good than bad after a 28-6 victory. Let's be honest about that. In terms of next week, then, because the beauty of again, this is a very low-budget produced podcast / YouTube video. By the way, podcast listeners, we're calling this Season 2, Episode 1, right? This is the first reaction of Season 2 of this podcast, Mike on the Vikes, so thanks for listening. And let me know if I'm ever talking about one of my graphics on YouTube and it doesn't make sense to you. I appreciate the feedback there. As we look ahead, we have San Francisco coming to U.S. Bank Stadium next week. Obviously going to be a tough matchup, but the other big thing about this win is that it takes a little bit of pressure off. I'm not saying I want us to go roll over and lose to the Niners, but if we had lost to the Giants today and then lose to the Niners and then have to host the Texans, who are up and coming and who I think are going to be really good this year, that just sets a tone at like the urgency feels like it sets in, right? Because then after hosting Texans, you have to go to Lambeau. And I know Jordan Love just got injured and he probably won't be playing in the Lambeau game. It's still the Packers in Green Bay. And they have a good defense this year, and so we can't just assume that we're going to go into Lambeau and beat them without Jordan Love. We have to be ready for that. And also, by the way, on that injury, sounds like Jordan Love's only out for 3 to 6 weeks. Maybe that means he gets to avoid surgery. That would be good. I mean, I know the Packers are rivals, but you never wish an injury to anybody. And you hope he gets better soon. Makes the rivalry better anyway when they're playing at their best. So hope for quick, happy healing for Jordan Love. I didn't say that well at all, but anyway, I hope it doesn't last. I hope he comes back after a few weeks and it's not as bad as it maybe could have been or looked in that game in Brazil. So anyway, so Niners up next. I think defensively, we're going to give the Niners some fits. You always have to worry about Christian McCaffrey, but I think last year we proved when we beat the Niners that we can frustrate Brock Purdy. He's not perfect. He is very good. They have a very good defense still. They're missing some players. They moved on from Eric Armstead. I think it's Dre Greenlaw that's out for a while. And they're a little bit aging. Some of their more veteran like elite players. So I think it's possible we pull out a victory. It is going to require Sam Darnold to keep playing at a high level, and that's kind of my big question mark here is how well he played today. I do remember, was it either beginning of last year or 2 years ago when he played in Carolina? He was lighting it up for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it fell off again. And then last year he was in San Francisco. Maybe that actually helps, by the way. Maybe he's got some insights that'll help him make make some smart throws. But he's got to string together, a few more before we start feeling like it's fully consistent. But I am kind of, especially after today, believing more and more in that. Now he's kind of found a system that works for him, and so when we combine the coach, the system, the fact that he's the undisputed starter, and he should have a relatively long leash, to be honest, because none of the guys behind him are proven. This might be the perfect storm for him, and he also has a lot to play for because this is a 1-year deal. Assuming we don't sign him again after this year, he's playing to get a contract elsewhere, either as a well-paid backup or maybe get another starting job as a bridge quarterback. I envision us extending him unless he completely lights it up and we're like, well, we can't pass this up now, then we can not rush J.J. McCarthy back. But anyway, that's a lot of speculation. I don't know why I got off on that quarterback tangent. Fact of the matter is, Vikes are 1-0, 28-6, big victory over the Giants. It was never in doubt either. It felt good to win by more than one possession, and no fear and no emotional roller coaster. But now we're on to the Niners. It's going to be a tough one at the bank. But they'll be coming on a short week, too, because they have a tough battle against the Jets on tomorrow night. So that might play into our advantage as well. So anyway, short week 1 reaction. Again, podcast listeners, this is officially season 2 if you're keeping track. This is Mike and the Vikes. My name is Josh at jlime8, mikeandthevikes.com. I'll post a link to the episode. Come let me know, commiserate, celebrate, talk Vikings football, or come find me at Bite Size Sports for a lot of other football content, and we'll be in touch. So happy Sunday night. Have a good start to your work week. Skol to